to Charles Haugen Reviews. Today I'm going to do the ultimate, end-all, be-all, greatest directors of all time ranking. Now, a few things that I need to get out there immediately. If there is a director that isn't on here, there are a couple of reasons that that's a possibility. The first and most likely is that I have only seen a couple of their films, maybe just one film, so I don't feel that I have the right to rank them among this kind of list. And the second one is I've seen multiple films of theirs, but they were all within the same franchise. Russo brothers is a great example. And the third, for a lot of directors especially on the international side or directors from an older time, things like that, they may not be on here because I just haven't seen any of their movies. And a good example of that would be somebody like Wong Kar-wai. I haven't explored his filmography yet. It is on my to-do list. But with all of that out of the way, just so you know, this is my opinion. This is how I feel personally. I would be interested to know what you think. Who did I miss? What did I get wrong? But let's go ahead and dive in. So I like to make things a little bit fun with my tier list. And as far as the categories we have here, we have GOAT, greatest of all time. I'm hoping it's going to be, one of the smaller categories, but I do like a lot of directors, so we'll see. The next category is Cinemaster. This is somebody who I think is a master of the craft, and they're extraordinarily talented, have created some classics, maybe even masterpieces, but they haven't really done anything that redefined or revolutionized the game and revolutionized the art of filmmaking. So that's going to be the biggest point of controversy, I think, with this list when you start seeing my rankings, because there are some directors that I've already thought in mind, like, you know what? I don't think they're a GOAT. After that, we got Student of the Game. And Student of the Game is where I'm going to have a director that I feel is very talented, very good at what they do. Maybe they had one or two amazing films. The rest were kind of mid-tier. But there's somebody who has the potential to become an all-time great with time, if they're still in the height of their career. And these are people that are technically very talented, but haven't truly proven themselves. Hit or miss, this is where I'm going to have the individuals who have made films where some of them are fantastic, some of them are kind of meh, middle ground, not really something that I would revisit very often. And these are people that are really inconsistent, and I don't think that they're going to have that type of lasting, masterful impact on the medium as a whole. And then Just Stop is the final category. And Just Stop is where we are going to have the directors that I wish would stop making movies. These are going to be people that historically, throughout their career, have just not really impressed me personally. And yeah, that's where we're going to put them. And I think that's going to be the second smallest part of this list, if not the first smallest. All right, so we are going to be starting off with Adrian Lyne. Okay, Adrian Lyne. Now, while I haven't seen too many of his films, the films that I have seen have left a pretty big impact on me, specifically Jacob's Ladder. Adrian Lyne also did Fatal Attraction and several other thrillers, lots of good films. Now, Jacob's Ladder may be one of my favorite movies of all time, but I don't personally feel like he did anything with his direction that was groundbreaking or that changed the world, so to speak, or changed the art of filmmaking as a whole. So with all of that in mind, I'm going to have to put Adrian Lyne into, let's see, I would say, this is already difficult right off the bat, I would say hit or miss. He's got some films that I absolutely adore, like the ones I mentioned before. And then he's got other films that are just not for me. Okay, and now we are moving on to Akira Kurosawa. Akira Kurosawa is, by all means, a legend and revolutionized filmmaking in a lot of different ways. The wide-angle lens in his combat sequences, the ragtag group of people that unite for a common cause. He was one of the first proprietors of that narrative style that we see in literally everything now. He inspired Star Wars with his filmmaking. His films like Ran are just visual spectacles. There's nothing that I can say about Akira Kurosawa that has not already been said. So he's going right up into GOAT, and I don't think that there's going to be any debate on that. And next up we have Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu, and I probably absolutely butchered that pronunciation. And to be candid, I've only seen 2 of his films that I can recall, Birdman and The Revenant. With that in mind, I think he's an amazing director. Like, there's no question about that. His camera techniques, especially in The Revenant, are amazing. The things that he can portray through a visual narrative is just dazzling. I have nothing but good things to say about him, but I don't think that he has the staying power just yet. If he has a couple more films like The Revenant and like Birdman, I could easily see him going up into Cinemaster, but for now he's going to go into Student of the Game. All right, and next up we have Alex Garland. Alex Garland is a very interesting entry into this list. Alex Garland has done Ex Machina, Annihilation, and the other film that I've seen from him is Civil War. I've not seen Men. He's tapped to do the Elden Ring film, which is going to be very interesting. Annihilation, I absolutely love. I think it's an amazing film. Ex Machina, while I can appreciate the skill it took to make it, it wasn't quite as good as I was hoping it would be when I saw it back in the day. And in regards to Civil War, I thought Civil War was actually better than a lot of people gave it credit for. I thought Civil War was a pretty good film. When thinking of these top 2 categories, Cinemaster and GOAT, I'm really thinking of techniques or styles that are specific to that individual director, something that they have done that has revolutionized the craft, or that you can instantly recognize their voice through the camera and their techniques. While Alex Garland has made some really good films and he's definitely got his own specific style, I have to put him in Student of the Game. I think that he could become a Cinemaster eventually, but as of right now, I think that Student of the Game is a good place to put him. And next up, we are going to have Alfonso Cuarón. I hope that I'm pronouncing that right as well. I'm going to be butchering pronunciations throughout this whole video, I guarantee it. Now, this is a director that I, again, kind of like with Inarritu, I can appreciate his ability and I can appreciate his craft. But I have to be honest with you here. I was not a fan of Gravity. I've never been a fan of that movie. I thought it was extremely overrated, kind of boring, and it didn't blow me away like it did others. And I feel like it's a film that as well is going to age poorly as VFX and everything gets better and better and better over time, since the movie is so heavily entrenched in VFX. Almost the entire thing is a green screen. And he did The Prisoner of Azkaban, the Harry Potter film, which I actually really didn't like. Another hot take, I didn't really like it. And the main reason was because that novel was my favorite in the Harry Potter series, and the werewolf design really bugged me. But overall, it's never been one that I felt like really captured the book and the spirit of the film, or of the novels. So yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that. Children of Men, I am a big fan of. Children of Men, I think, is great. And now, while Cuarón has some definite skill and talent and techniques that are very unique to him, I'm going to have to put him as well in Student of the Game. All right. And now we are moving on to Mr. Alfred Hitchcock. This one's tough. This one's really tough. There's 2 different places he could go. So Alfred Hitchcock, Psycho, Birds, Vertigo, all these other films, revolutionary, changed everything at the time. Now, with that being the case, with Kurosawa, with Akira Kurosawa, I feel like there are things that Kurosawa did that can't be replicated. Like, the way that he would make a film was one of a kind, and I don't think anybody could ever even come close to his level of cinematography and the angles that he did and the creativity that he had and the colors and all that other stuff. So Alfred Hitchcock, I feel like a lot of his techniques have been done by directors since, and some of them may have even done it better. But if we're talking strictly legacy, if we're talking strictly his impact on the medium, if we're talking his impact on film as a whole, he's going to have to go into GOAT. Next up, we got Andy Muschietti, who did Mama, and he did the It movies, and he did a few episodes of Welcome to Derry, The Flash, a few other films. Out of all of the ones that I mentioned, the only one that I think was actually really good was the first It movie. And because of that, I think Andy Muschietti is going to have to go into hit or miss. The CGI problem is a big thing with Muschietti, and I feel like he seriously needs to either get a different team or something. Like, there's some disconnect, and he's tried defending it, and it just made him look bad when he said that it was intentional for it to look bad. That's not the case. Just take the L and admit that it's crap. So Andy Muschietti has a lot of potential, and who knows where he'll go in the future. He's still early in his career, I believe. So yeah, I think that he's definitely hit or miss, and if he doesn't get better, it's if he doesn't get better CGI, and if he doesn't become more consistent, it's not a great outlook for him as a director. Okay, next up we have Ari Aster. Ari Aster did Hereditary, Midsummer, Beau is Afraid. Not a lot of weird movies. But the thing is that he is so incredibly talented when it comes to his direction, in my personal opinion. I think that if he had a few more films on his repertoire, that he could probably be in Cinemaster. But as of right now, I'm probably going to have to put him in Student of the Game. But up here at the top, I think that Ari Aster, if he has a couple more films that are at the same quality and direction as Hereditary and Midsummer, at least, that he would easily become a Cinemaster. Okay, and we are moving on to Bong Joon-ho. Bong Joon-ho, Memories of Murder, The Host, Mickey 17, Parasite, which is the one most people know. I'm a big aficionado of South Korean film, and it's going to seem crazy when I say this, but Bong Joon-ho, in my opinion, is not the best South Korean director, and he is going to go into Cinemaster. I think Bong Joon-ho is one of the greats of our time, and I think that he definitely is a master at his craft. He's made some of the most memorable films in the 21st century, but at the same time, there are others who definitely outshine him. So he is going to be snug and warm in that Cinemaster category for now. And Bryan Singer, interesting one, right? Bryan Singer did the first 2 X-Men. For X-Men, he did Usual Suspects. So he's done a couple of things. Now, I think that his films don't really have that much of a unique quality to them, or a specific voice that's individualistic to Bryan Singer. I think he's a talented director, but I'm going to have to put him into hit or miss. He's got some really good films and some very memorable ones, but at the same time, he's got a slew of other projects that I'm just not the biggest fan of. All right, and moving on to Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan is no stranger to, I imagine, any of you. Christopher Nolan did the Dark Knight trilogy, Insomnia, Memento, Interstellar, Inception, Dunkirk, Oppenheimer, Tenet. The Prestige. The guy's made some of the most memorable films of recent memory. Now, this is the thing, though. While Christopher Nolan has made some of the best films of recent memory, and including some of my favorites, Interstellar is one of my favorites of all time. Same with The Dark Knight. With all that being said, Christopher Nolan seriously takes a lot from directors before him and their techniques, like Michael Mann, for example. So Christopher Nolan has made some very impactful films and has done a lot for the medium. But unfortunately, and you're going to hate me for this, I don't think he belongs in GOAT tier. And I think that he belongs in Cinemaster. We'll put him above Bong Joon-ho, though. Okay? And Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood, Million Dollar Baby, Mystic River, which is one that I really love, Gran Torino. He's done a lot of good films. But I don't think that there's really anything that defines a Clint Eastwood movie and a Clint Eastwood direction. I feel like he makes good movies, he gets good scripts, and I respect him for doing his own score a lot of times too. Mystic River has a great score, and he actually did that. He orchestrated it. So, with all that being said, I would say, and it's crazy to consider this about Clint Eastwood, Clint Eastwood is a student of the game. But you know what? I'm probably going to put him above these others. Let me put him right there. Yeah, Clint Eastwood has made some really good films, and overall I think that his filmography is pretty consistently good, but I just don't think that there's anything he's done that's really changed or revolutionized the medium. Now Clive Barker, Nightbreed, Candyman, Hellraiser. All three of those movies I enjoy, but some of the other stuff he's done I'm not that big on, and the films I even just mentioned, they have their issues. They may be classics in certain regards, but they don't come without their problems. So for Clive Barker, as much as I really enjoy a lot of his movies, I'm going to have to put him here in hit or miss, and I'm going to put him right behind Adrian Lyne, because I think that Jacob's Ladder, honestly, is better than anything Clive Barker's ever done. But that's just my opinion. And moving on to the Coen brothers. Man, the Coen brothers. What an interesting filmography. What a range of genres that they've done. It's really fascinating, all the way back to Blood Simple. And then we have things like The Big Lebowski, Fargo, No Country for Old Men, things like that. See, this is where it gets hard when it comes to deciding between these top two categories, because I feel like the Coen brothers have made some all-time classics. I feel like they've had a really huge impact on the medium, but I don't think that it is enough to hit GOAT. So I'm going to put them at the very top of Cinemaster. I feel like the Coen brothers are better than Christopher Nolan and Bong Joon-ho. So I think that's fair. Moving on to Danny Boyle. 28 Days Later, Sunshine, Slumdog Millionaire. He's made a lot of bangers, a lot of good movies. 28 Years Later, I actually really liked. I thought it was fantastic, and I don't understand like some of the hate that it's gotten. But Danny Boyle's a very talented director. 127 Hours, Train Spotting. The guy's done a lot. He's done a lot of really good films. He's got a very interesting style, a very interesting form of direction. And with all that being said, I'm going to have to put him, you know what? I'm going to put him above Clint Eastwood in Student of the Game. I don't feel like he's quite a Cinemaster, but I feel like he is pretty close if he does a few more really good films. David Cronenberg. Oh, David Cronenberg. I feel like David Cronenberg is a very interesting anomaly here, because he's made some great films. Videodrome, The Fly, Scanners, even A History of Violence, and movies that aren't necessarily body horror. But when you think of body horror, you think of David Cronenberg. David Cronenberg is revolutionary in the horror genre. And with that in mind, I don't think he's necessarily revolutionary in the medium overall. I think that he definitely, his influence is substantial and it's large, but I don't think that he has had as much of an impact as some of these others. I can't think of a film that he's done that I really didn't like, that I felt was a missed opportunity, or that I felt was lackluster. I mean, sure, a lot of it's difficult to watch, but he's done really great work, and his son is on the up and up too. So man, this is tough. This is really tough. I didn't think this list was going to be so hard. Just because he revolutionized body horror and practical effects, and just because he really changed the horror genre in general, and this may change. This may change. I'm going to put him at the very top of student of the game. I'm like this close to putting him in Cinemaster, but it's just the influence I don't feel is universal. So that's where I'm running into the challenge here and the struggle of like putting him in that spot. Next up, we have David Fincher. Alien 3, Fight Club, Seven, The Game, Gone Girl, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Mindhunter, the show. David Fincher is one of the best. He's one of the best, honestly. And one of the best directors working today. He's a director that when he has a movie coming out, I'm like paying attention. I definitely think he has some techniques that he uses that are unique to him specifically. So I'm going to put him in... I'll put him in Cinemaster. I'm going to put him behind Bong Joon-ho. David Lynch. Oh, man. Now, we are looking at film here, but I think that it's worth noting Twin Peaks and how it is almost like an amalgamation of all of the Lynchisms in his filmography. So we have films like Eraserhead, Mulholland Drive, Lost Highway, tons and tons of amazing movies. Twin Peaks, Fire Walk with Me, another amazing film. David Lynch, Blue Velvet. How can I forget Blue Velvet? Probably my favorite film he did. David Lynch mastered the balance between ethereal and an anchor in reality. He mastered the ability to make something dreamlike, but to also anchor you in the story as if it were really happening. And I don't think any director has ever quite done that. We have directors like Nicholas Winding Refn, who is going to appear on this list at a later point. Nicholas Winding Refn is one that has tried to do what David Lynch did. Now, some might say David Lynch was somewhat inspired by Kubrick. I don't agree. I think that Winding Refn was definitely inspired by Kubrick, but I don't agree with David Lynch, because David Lynch was doing this for a while. And R.I.P. to the guy. He's one of the all-time greats. With all of this in mind and considering his legacy, I'm going to have to put him in Cinemaster, and I'm actually going to put him above the Coen brothers, just based on his influence and how unique he is. Next up, we have David Twohy. David Twohy, or Twohy, I don't really know how to pronounce his last name. He did the Riddick series. He did that movie Below. Pitch Black is like one of my all-time favorite science fiction films. I really, really love it. I think it's super underrated, and Riddick is such a fascinating character. Now, with all that in mind, I don't think that David Twohy has done a very... I don't think he has a very large filmography, and I don't think that his filmography is very consistent in the quality that it holds. I think he's made some great movies, but at the same time, some of them are not so good. So I'm going to put him in hit or miss, and I'm going to put him right behind Adrian Lyne. Okay, and we are on to Denis Villeneuve. There are two directors on this list who are tied for my favorite directors of all time. The other one is yet to come. Denis Villeneuve is the first. I think that Denis Villeneuve is going to go down as the director that made it possible for higher art cinema, more avant-garde cinema to be mainstream. I think that he brought the artistic side into the mainstream, and that he made it normal, and he made it something that people wanted to see. Beautiful cinematography, beautiful images, and mind-blowing concepts. Every film that Denis Villeneuve has done, I love. Like, even Enemy. I really love Enemy. But Incendies, Sicario, Arrival, Prisoners, probably my favorite film ever made. The Dune films, Blade Runner 2049, that the guy does not make bad films. And he has a sense of scale that he's able to achieve that no other director can achieve. I think that the guy's a GOAT. He's straight up a GOAT. And I'm going to put him above Hitchcock, because as much as Hitchcock I think is a GOAT, and I think that a lot of his techniques are revolutionary, I think that Denis Villeneuve 50 years from now is going to be even more revolutionary. There might be recency bias in that. Whatever. It's my opinion. But yeah, he is going to be our third entry into the GOAT category. Next up, we have Edgar Wright. Edgar Wright is a very quirky style. He's done films like Shaun of the Dead, Baby Driver, things like that. Most of his films are very entrenched in British humor, so there's a lot of things that go over my head because I'm not culturally aware of a lot of that, a lot of those senses of humor. He's got a very unique style. It's very witty, whimsical, and there's something unique about him for sure. Some of his films are hits, some of them are miss, and I'm going to have to put him in that category just because of that. I know that he is a beloved director, but for me personally, I'm just not the biggest fan. So I'm going to put him here. We'll put him behind Clive Barker. And we are on to a heavy hitter here, Francis Ford Coppola, the director of The Godfather, the director of Apocalypse Now. And to say that he was anything but revolutionary would be a disservice to Francis Ford Coppola. Francis Ford Coppola, when he was making good movies, they were phenomenal. His Dracula adaptation is still probably my favorite Dracula film ever made. Gary Oldman was just spectacular in that. I mean, sure, that movie has a couple of flaws, like Keanu Reeves trying to be British, but with all that being said, it is a beautiful film. It is gothic. It is a gothic romance like we've never seen before and we haven't seen since. I would be remiss to not put him in the GOAT category behind Alfred Hitchcock. I think that Francis Ford Coppola has definitely inspired countless directors. He did revolutionize the industry in many ways, and he is going to sit firmly there in the GOAT category. Next up, we have Francis Lawrence. Francis Lawrence, so he's done films like Constantine, I Am Legend, a couple of the Hunger Games movies. He did The Long Walk, which I still haven't seen, and I need to watch it. I feel like Francis Lawrence is very talented behind the camera, and I think that he definitely deserves more credit, but I think the reason that people don't really recognize his ability is because he is very limited in the films that he chooses. Most of his films are very mainstream, very blockbuster oriented, but I do think that he's very talented, and I think that he is kind of an underrated director in some ways. I just wish that he would kind of push the boundaries a little bit, try something new. And I'm going to put Francis Lawrence, we're going to put him here in Student of the Game. Next up is Frank Darabont, who has done classics such as Shawshank Redemption, Green Mile, and he also did The Mist, which is a really, really good horror film with a very sad ending. Frank Darabont has made some really amazing films, but I don't feel like there's much that really separates him from the pack. He doesn't have like a unique talent or skill that other directors can't really replicate, but I do think that he's made some fantastic films. I'm going to put him up here in Student of the Game, and I'm going to put him ahead of Danny Boyle. Next up, we have Gareth Edwards. Gareth Edwards is a director I'm really kind of keeping my eyes on. I think that he's got such a talent and a skill when it comes to visual effects and merging that with the live characters or actors in his movies. The Creator, I really liked. I really thought The Creator was great. He did the 2014 Godzilla. He did Rogue One, Monsters, and of course, we cannot forget Jurassic World Rebirth. I don't think that he is blowing away any competition at this point, and it seems that he's going into, at least with the Jurassic World movie, more of a blockbuster kind of direction. And, that's good. He's getting huge paychecks, but I wish that he would go and do more stuff like The Creator. I think that was a passion project for him, but I would like to see him step out of these franchises. Because if you think about it, like outside of The Creator, he's done 3 franchise films. Like ignoring Creator, 3 franchise films in a row. So I would like to see him kind of test the waters a bit and see what he can do. I'm going to have to put him in Student of the Game. I'm going to put him, I'll put him here at the end. Depending on his next few films, he could easily go into hit or miss. George A. Romero. We all know George A. Romero, Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead. He did a few other movies, but he was kind of restricted in his career specifically to his zombie saga. Now, obviously, he did do other films, but they didn't have quite the notoriety or reputation that his zombie films did. He definitely pushed boundaries. He definitely changed the horror genre. But I don't think that there, especially in his later films, I don't think that there's anything that could really not be replicated, you know? And honestly, a lot of his later films were actually really bad. Diary of the Dead, Survival of the Dead, both I thought were pretty terrible. And R.I.P. George A. Romero, but you're going to have to go to the top here. Won't put you behind Adrian Lyne. I'm telling you, Jacob's Ladder holds a lot of weight for me. He's going to go right behind Adrian Lyne here in hit or miss. Next up, we have George Lucas, another director that I feel is very restricted. He's very set in a specific franchise, known for a specific set of films, that being, of course, Star Wars. Did American Graffiti, THX 1138, and both of those films are good. Both of those films are fine, but nothing that really like blew me away. Now, when we're looking at impact, his films definitely had impact, but something to remember is that yes, the original Star Wars A New Hope was revolutionary in everything it did, but Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi are by different directors, and then the prequels are all directed and written by him. And while I adore those films, they have an abundance of flaws. I'm gonna have to, and this is crazy even to me, I'm gonna have to put George Lucas into the very top of hit or miss, because I think that he definitely has had a massive impact on the franchise, or not on the franchise, on the medium as a whole. But as far as his talents as a director, I don't think that his talents are as good as the people in Student of the Game. I don't think that he, as a director, is as proficient and consistent as those above him. Gore Verbinski is another interesting one. He did Pirates of the Caribbean, the American remake of The Ring, Cure for Wellness, a few others. He's a very talented director. His work is very cinematic. It's large scale, wide scale. He does a great job with color palettes as well. But with all that in mind, he doesn't make a lot of films. And I don't think that he's really changed anything, but I definitely think he's an incredibly talented director. So just keeping his talent in mind and the quality of the films he has released, I'm going to put him up here in Student of the Game. I'll put him right behind Ari Aster. Guillermo del Toro. Guillermo del Toro is a legend. He's very talented. One of the best working directors today. Pan's Labyrinth is an all-time great, all-time classic. People 50 years from now are still going to be watching that movie. It's still going to be hailed as an all-time great, in my opinion. He has done great movies, right? He's done Pan's Labyrinth. He did Devil's Backbone. But, oh yeah, Shape of Water, Frankenstein, most recently. But he's also had a couple of stinkers. Now, Crimson Peak, I was not a fan of. And the film that he did, I think it was City of Lost Children, I think. Wasn't a big fan. Mimic, I love the movie because it's schlop, but, you know, it's not a very good film. Kronos, it's pretty good. But I don't think that he's quite there with Cinemaster. And I'm going to make a lot of people angry. But I don't think he's quite there. I think that he is probably... No, I think he's definitely more influential than Cronenberg. And we're going to put him here at the top of Student of the Game. Guy Ritchie. Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and Snatch are both great films. But man, he has had some stinkers. His really good films definitely outweigh the stinkers, in my opinion. But man, he is so hit or miss. But yeah, he is incredibly inconsistent, and when he doesn't lean into his strengths, it definitely makes the film suffer. So I'm going to put him in hit or miss. And we are going to put him... We're going to put him below Clive Barker, right next to Andy Muschietti. Next up, we have Hideo Nakata. Hideo Nakata did Dark Water and the original Ringu. Man, I love my Japanese directors, man, but I don't know. So Ringu definitely changed J-horror in general and kind of revolutionized that medium specifically, influenced a lot of Western culture and Western media. But I don't know if there are any specific techniques that he uses that really stand out for me personally. I'm going to put Hideo Nakata in Student of the Game. I'm going to put him above Gore Verbinski here. No, you know what? I'm going to put him above Ari Aster. Next up, we have Ishiro Honda. Ishiro Honda was the director of Godzilla, the original Gojira, in 1954. Ishiro Honda also directed, a slew of tokusatsu films. He is the undeniable king of tokusatsu. But Ishiro Honda, while he definitely revolutionized the kaiju genre, he didn't really expand much out of that. He worked a lot with Akira Kurosawa, which is something that a lot of people don't know. And him and Kurosawa were very good friends. In fact, if I remember correctly, Seven Samurai and Gojira were both coming out around the same time. And Ishiro Honda was actually a second unit director on Kurosawa's Ran, and he directed multiple shorts in Kurosawa's Dreams. I think if Ishiro Honda had gone beyond the tokusatsu genre, he could be considered a GOAT. But his influence is undeniable. The films that he did make, even though that they were so isolated to a specific genre or specific subgenre, they were still, you feel the waves of impact even today. So I'm going to have to put Ishiro Honda, as far as his influence and impact, I'm going to put him in Cinemaster. And I'm going to put him behind the Coen brothers and in front of Christopher Nolan. Oh boy, the lens flare god, the one and only J.J. Abrams, who did Force Awakens and who did the Star Trek remake, all these other things. I'm not a big J.J. Abrams fan. I'm really not. I hate that he gets the credit that he does when he basically piggybacks off of Damon Lindelof's writing. And Damon Lindelof is the one that wrote Lost. He was the real brain matter behind all of that. He was the brain matter behind a lot of really great films in recent memory. He even wrote Prometheus. People don't know that. And J.J. Abrams kind of took on as if he was the one responsible for all this creativity. And I think that J.J. Abrams is one of the most overly, undeservedly celebrated directors working today. When you realize how derivative his films are, when you realize how repetitive his techniques are in his direction, it really tells you a lot. And just because of that, I just wish that J.J. Abrams would stop making movies. And he's going to be our first entry into Just Stop. James Cameron. Oh, man. James Cameron is... I know that people are very split on him. There's a lot of reasons to be split on him, right? There's a lot of different discussions that take place regarding him as a person. I don't care really about him as a person. And we're looking here at directing. We're not looking here at writing. I'm aware that he plagiarized Terminator from Harlan Ellison. I'm completely aware of that. And I'm aware that a lot of his ideas probably were not original. But when we're looking at him as a director, and we're looking at the way that he revolutionized VFX in each subsequent film for about 2 decades, if not longer. If you think about it, go back. Terminator was revolutionary for its VFX, and now it looks outdated. A few years after that, he did The Abyss, which was, if I remember correctly, the first film with a full 3D model creature in it, with the alien in the abyss. And then shortly after that, he took on the 3D CGI and just stepped it up a notch with Terminator 2. And he did Aliens, which was a testament with Stan Winston's animatronics in that film with the alien queen and the xenomorphs. And then he did Avatar, which once again completely changed and revolutionized everything, revolutionized mocap, revolutionized all of it. James Cameron also has, I think, an unrivaled ability to direct his actors to feel organic and to feel fluid. We haven't seen that skill really come to light since probably 1991, you know? Hate to say it, but back then in Terminator 2 and Aliens, he was unrivaled when it came to having these organic characters that felt like they were real people in the way that they would talk and the way that they would interact. And there's only one other director who even comes close, and he is going to be coming up here, I think, towards the end. So I think James Cameron, he's unequivocally a GOAT in my opinion. I'm going to put him right here behind. No, you know what? I'm going to put him above Denis Villeneuve. I know that recency bias dictates that the Avatar movies are not the greatest. They make a ton of money. He is also really good when it comes to knowing how to make money. He consistently makes top grossing films of all time, but we cannot deny his influence on film. We cannot deny his ability to direct actors and to create these dynamic relationships on screen where it feels like you're watching real people and not actors that are performing. So he is going to sit firmly there in the GOAT status. Okay, and then we got James Gunn. Most recently did Superman, did the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. He did Slither, which was really good. I don't think that James Gunn really has anything that makes him specifically unique as a director. He does have a good ability to make humorous characters in messed up situations kind of shine. He's good at doing the team dynamic like he did in Guardians, Suicide Squad. But I don't think that he's completely revolutionary or influential in really any way. And with that in mind, I'm going to put James Gunn into student of the game. And solely as a director, I'm going to put him right in front of Gareth Edwards. James Mangold. James Mangold has made some bangers. He's another one that's super underrated, just like Gore Verbinski. I mean, Logan, we can all agree, was great. I really like 3:10 to Yuma. The guy's made some excellent films. And I think that he's very talented as a director. He's got a very gritty style to him. I think I'm going to put James Mangold here in student of the game as well. I'm going to put him above James Gunn there. Or you know what? Just based on consistency, I'm going to put him right here behind Gore Verbinski. James Wan. A lot of Jameses here. James Wan, director of, let's go back. Saw, the first Saw movie. He did Death Sentence with Kevin Bacon, which I absolutely love. Needs a 4K release ASAP. He did Dead Silence, which is just schlocky fun. Insidious, Conjuring, Aquaman, one of the Fast and Furious movies. I don't watch those, so I don't know which one he did, but I know he did one of them. Malignant. James Wan is revolutionary in the horror genre. He honestly brought horror back into the mainstream. Saw revitalized the slasher genre. Insidious and Conjuring revitalized the haunted house and possession genres, respectively. I think that James Wan is one of the most talented directors when it comes to setting a scene and earning his scares. I feel like he has these scares that feel the most organic, and they don't completely rely on musical cues. And him and Lee Wannell as a team, unbeatable. They made some of the best horror films of the past 20, 30 years. Looking at influence and how he's impacted directors now, the techniques that he used in his films and how everybody's piggybacking on that. Even somebody like Mike Flanagan and Scott Derrickson, those people are piggybacking on what James Wan did best. And with that all said, I'm going to put him here in Cinemaster. I think James Wan is heavily underrated as a director. He's gone mainstream recently, but that does not tarnish his reputation or his impact on film. Jan de Bont, Speed, Twister, The Haunting, popcorn flicks. That's what Jan de Bont really does. Jan de Bont's pretty talented. He's not, doesn't blow me away or anything. I don't feel like he really stands out among the crowd. And I feel like some of his films are kind of hit or miss for me. So we're going to put Jan de Bont here. I'm going to put him above David Twohy, right below George Romero. Jennifer Kent. Okay, this is an interesting one. Jennifer Kent, is only films I've seen her do are Babadook and The Nightingale, and both of them are spectacular movies. Both of them are really, really well done. I want to see more from her before I can really give her a ranking that I feel super confident in. And with all that in mind, for now, Jennifer Kent is going to go... Jennifer Kent's going to go right behind Clint Eastwood here in Student of the Game. I think if she does a few more movies of the same quality and tier as Nightingale and as Babadook, then she could easily become a Cinemaster. But as of right now, I'm pretty confident in this placement. John Carpenter. Man. Talk about influence. Talk about staying power. John Carpenter is a legendary filmmaker. One of the greatest of all time. Now, the only thing that would hold him back from going into the GOAT category, for me personally, would be his kind of restriction into a certain genre. John Carpenter didn't really stray away from horror that much. He did, a little bit, but primarily he just stuck with horror. But the horror that he did is so influential. Halloween, I mean, that's the beginning of the slasher, everything. Like that was the first. That was where it all started. I mean, we can argue that Texas Chainsaw Massacre might be able to take that title, but Halloween definitely made it mainstream. Because Texas Chainsaw Massacre, great film, one of the all-time best, but it didn't quite have the social and cultural impact that Halloween did. And then we can't even forget to talk about The Thing. The Thing is one of the greatest films ever made. It's one of the truest testaments to the staying power of practical effects and animatronics. That film still looks great, even to this day. And it's been, 40 years? So, absolutely, John Carpenter is one of the all-time greats. I mean, They Live is another great example. Prince of Darkness is great. Vampires, hit or miss with that one. And he's had a couple movies that weren't the best. But overall, John Carpenter's influence cannot be understated. And I'm going to go ahead and put John Carpenter, as far as his influence, he's going to go right here. I'm going to put him behind the Coen brothers, ahead of Ishiro Honda, based on his influence and his innovative techniques and how he kind of revolutionized film. John McTiernan, Die Hard, 13th Warrior, one of my all-time favorites. Predator, another all-time classic. John McTiernan, man, he made some really good films back in the day. It's sad to see what happened to him, or what he did, and where his life is now. It's very unfortunate. I just hope that, maybe one day he'll have a comeback story. I don't know. He's getting up there. But John McTiernan doesn't really have a lot of specific techniques or skills that he uses or brings to the table that set him apart from other directors. And I do think that some of his films are not as good as others. The films that he did make that were great, I think, are all-timers, in my opinion. And, I mean, Die Hard changed the action genre forever. We no longer just have these buff men. Now an everyday average Joe could be a hero as well. Predator flipped the dynamic of the masculine hero archetype and kind of made the most masculine actor of all time, Arnold Schwarzenegger, become the victim, so to speak, become the prey. No pun intended. But I think that his influence in his films is massive. But I don't think that he, as a director, has influenced that much. So if we're looking at his films alone, he'd be a lot higher. But I'm going to put him here just based on the few films he has done that were so good. I'm going to put him here above Guillermo del Toro in Student of the Game. Jordan Peele. So what Jordan Peele has given us: Get Out, Us, and Nope. Only 3 films in, still very early on in his career. Jordan Peele is the classic victim of what I would call the Icarus phenomenon, where he flew a bit too close to the sun. And I don't think it was necessarily his fault. I think that the Get Out was just such a great film that there wasn't really much that could even come close to it afterwards. But Jordan Peele definitely has some very unique techniques that he uses in his direction. And he definitely has an ability to tell a story and craft a narrative that is unlike any other. And I feel like you could definitely see a shot from a film by Jordan Peele and be like, yeah, that's a Jordan Peele film. I don't know what it is specifically. Maybe it's the close-up angles that he utilizes. Maybe it is the almost trippy, heady way that he directs some of his scenes. I think Jordan Peele is going to be very influential in the long term, if he kind of gets back on the horse and makes films that are better than Nope. I don't think Nope was a bad movie. I just need to get that out of the way. It wasn't as good as Us, and Us was not nearly as good as Get Out. I'm going to put Jordan Peele here in Student of the Game. I'm going to put him behind... Yeah. I'm going to put him here behind David Cronenberg. Catherine Bigelow. She won. She was the first female to win Best Director at the Oscars for Hurt Locker. Hurt Locker is a good movie. It never really blew me away like it did some people. I'm more in preference to her films like Near Dark. I think Near Dark is better than The Lost Boys. Kill me now! Like I know it's unpopular, but I do think that Near Dark is one of the best vampire movies of the 1980s. I think that she's pretty talented as a director, but I don't think that she even comes close to her ex-husband, James Cameron. I think that she definitely absorbed some of his techniques in his direction, and I wish that she would make more films, and I wish that she would do more risky ventures like Hurt Locker. I would love to see her do another film sometime soon. But as of right now, I don't think that she's like super duper influential. So I'm going to put her here in Student of the Game. I'm actually, you know what? I'm going to put her behind Jennifer Kent. I think Jennifer Kent's a better filmmaker. I think she's a better director. Kevin Costner, a director or an actor turned director like Mel Gibson. Dances with Wolves is a great movie. Open Range, meh. Postman, meh. Horizon, meh. I'm going to have to put him at probably just because of Dances with Wolves. Only because of Dances with Wolves, I'm going to put him at the very bottom of Hit or Miss. If he didn't have Dances with Wolves, I would probably put him in Just Stop. I don't think that he's spectacular in really any fashion except for Dances with Wolves. I think that that's a very well-directed film. But yeah, I think this is a good place for him in Hit or Miss here at the bottom. I think that Bryan Singer's films are quality-wise better, at least to me specifically. So I'm confident with his placement there. I would like to see him do something that's of the same quality as Dances with Wolves. Kim Ji-woon, a South Korean director who is responsible for amazing films such as A Tale of Two Sisters and I Saw the Devil. 2 of my all-time favorites. I really love Kim Ji-woon, and I think that he is incredibly talented, really, really good at what he does. I don't think he's quite cinemaster quality. He hasn't really done anything to revolutionize the industry or the medium. His couple of films that are so good, they really stand out, and they're going to hold the test of time. Tale of Two Sisters is incredibly influential. It has influenced so many movies and even shows. If you know the film, you know what I'm talking about. That twist, people have stolen it and stolen it and stolen it over and over again, and it's a bit frustrating. Because now when you go back and you show somebody A Tale of Two Sisters for the first time, the first question I hear is, oh, did they copy this or did they copy that? I'm like, no, dude, this was what was copied. Kim Ji-woon, I think, is super underrated. I Saw the Devil is one of the best serial killer thrillers ever. So yeah, we're going to take Kim Ji-woon here, and we are going to put him, we'll put him below David Cronenberg. So I think Cronenberg's a bit more influential, but I think that Kim Ji-woon definitely has a potential to become as influential, if not more. Next up, we have Kiyoshi Kurosawa, who's responsible for the J-horror classic Pulse, or Cairo, and most notably, he did Cure. If you have not seen the film Cure, go into it completely blind, and if you, for whatever reason, don't really understand what it's about or you want more questions answered, it's the perfect film to watch an analysis video of. Cure is an all-time great. I absolutely adore that film. I think it is incredibly underrated, and I do believe it's going to be super influential. Pulse, or Cairo, is also very influential in the J-horror sphere, but Cure specifically is a masterpiece, a masterclass effort in cinema. And with all that in mind, I do think that he is going to go here above Guillermo del Toro. I would put him above John McTiernan, but I feel like John McTiernan's films have had more of an impact on the medium. Next up is Leigh Whannell. Leigh Whannell was kind of the co-conspirator with James Wan for a lot of the films that James Wan did, such as Saw. He was usually the writer. He did Saw. I believe he did Dead Silence. He wrote Insidious. I believe he wrote Conjuring as well. Recently, he's been branching out and doing his own things. He did Upgrade, Invisible Man, and most recently Wolfman. I honestly think that his films are consistently high quality. Oh yeah, he directed Insidious Chapter 3. Another good example. A lot of people think that that's like one of the best in the franchise, if not the best. I think Leigh Whannell is super underrated. I don't understand the hate that the Wolfman got. I thought the Wolfman was actually really good, and it was a very interesting and unique take. We need to see more from Leigh Whannell. As a writer, he would be a lot higher here. Simply as a director, this is getting tough now. I'm going to put him here below Ari Aster. No, I can't do that. I'm going to put him below Gore Verbinski. Luc Besson, very famous director. He did Leon the Professional, all-time classic, Fifth Element. He's done a lot of really good films, memorable films. He has an incredibly unique style. Now, that style, while being incredibly unique, I don't know if it's necessarily super influential. I don't know if he necessarily did anything that truly revolutionized film making as a whole. But his films themselves are incredible. And I think that, you know what? I think that Luc Besson's films are just about as influential as John McTiernan. So we're going to put him right here. Oh dear, M. Night Shyamalan. I have this fear that Jordan Peele is going to end up becoming an M. Night Shyamalan duplicate. M. Night Shyamalan came out with such bangers. He came out with such amazing films in the beginning. Unbreakable, Sixth Sense, Signs, back-to-back, just bangers. And then he did The Village, Lady in the Water, The Happening, and pretty much everything since then, aside from Split, has been either extremely mid or extremely bad. If he only had those first three films, he would be so much higher, maybe even Cinemaster. I do think that he's incredibly influential. If we're looking at legacy, as far as his impact on film as a whole, he would be in Cinemaster, but I cannot ignore the quality of his filmography. I'm going to have to put... Man, this is tough. Okay, I'm going to lean just straight into influence here and how he's impacted the industry, and I'm going to put him right here behind John McTiernan. I think John McTiernan has done more for film as a whole than M. Night Shyamalan. But man, it could have been so much higher. It just sucks. Martin Scorsese with the fast-paced tracking shot, voiceover. We all know a Martin Scorsese film when we see one. It is wholly unique. It is wholly phenomenal. He has such a way of telling a story. He can make a 3-hour film feel like an hour and a half film. He is one of the all-time greats, one of the all-time legends. The thing is, I don't think that his filmmaking style, I don't know if it's, yeah, I think it's influenced quite a bit, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. People like Tarantino, they would have never made films the way they did if it wasn't for Scorsese. And just looking at his filmography and just the waves that he has caused, the consistency and quality that he's produced, I'm going to put Scorsese here at the bottom of GOAT. Because I think that Coppola, well, you know what? We'll put him above Coppola. Because I think that overall, he has had much more influence. Matt Reeves did Let Me In. He did Cloverfield. He did the Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, War of the Planet of the Apes, and most recently, The Batman, which I really loved. I think it's a bit too early for us to really determine if he's like Cinemaster or GOAT level. I think that he has the potential to be. He's kind of stuck to franchise and popcorn films. I would like to see him step outside of that and try something more independent or unique. I'm going to have to put him here in Student of the Game. And based on his influence, I'm going to put him above... I'll put him above Gore Verbinski. But I think that Ari Aster and all of those above are better filmmakers than him. Mel Gibson, controversy aside, all the crap that went down with him, Mel Gibson was a hell of a director. I mean, I'm not religious in any sense, but Passion of the Christ is a well-shot film. I would never watch it again, but it's very well shot. Apocalypto, peak. Great film. Cinema. Like that. Apocalypto is just an outstanding movie. Oh, and Braveheart. Can't forget that. He definitely has a skill when it comes to shooting these large, huge, big scale scenes, right? Really showing scale, but also keeping the scale contained. He's not like Denis Villeneuve where it's like you're looking down on Earth, you know, from an alien ship kind of like scale. It's not that type of scale. Like Denis Villeneuve can make you feel like you're not even on Earth when you're looking at something that's on Earth. It's crazy how he does it. But Mel Gibson definitely is capable of portraying scale, but in a constricted frame. And I think that that's a true talent. As far as influence, I don't think that he really is super influential, but I do think that his films have had such an incredible impact on culture and the film medium. And I think he's 100 times better than Kevin Costner. So we're going to go ahead and put him here. I'm going to put him above Jordan Peele. Yeah, I'm confident with that. We'll put him above Jordan Peele. Michael Bay. Michael Bay. Michael Bay. The man who famously called moviegoers idiots or morons or whatever he said, and you know, those morons or those idiots will, you know, pay the money to buy the ticket anyway. He makes bad movies on a big budget, and I have zero respect for him as a director. I don't think he does anything that is unique. I think that a lot of his films are actually pretty god-awful. They might look nice at times, but overall his quality is C to D tier at best. I don't think he's a good director. I think that he just, for whatever reason, makes movies that people enjoy, that normal, everyday, average Joes like. And unfortunately, I'm a bit more on the snobby side of the film world, and they do nothing for me at all. And he's going to go in the bottom of Just Stop. I would rather see a J.J. Abrams film than a Michael Bay film, and that says a lot. Next up, we got Michael Mann. Michael Mann has done such films like Manhunter, Heat, Collateral. Some really good films. He's kind of like the Christopher Nolan before Christopher Nolan's, right? A lot of Christopher Nolan's filming techniques are directly inspired by Michael Mann. Michael Mann is very good at creating ground level narratives that feel dirty and grimy, and but at the same time clean. It's hard to explain, but like the cinematography is very clean, and the color grading feels clean, but it's almost like the material of the story and the characters themselves are grimy and dirty. Yeah, he's really, really talented, and he's got the only hand cam or shaky cam that I can get behind that I really like. So I think Michael Mann's super influential. I think that he is definitely the biggest inspiration for Christopher Nolan up there, and I would say even David Fincher's inspired by Michael Mann. So he's gonna go up here and put him above Bong Joon Ho. Mike Flanagan's been on a tear recently, and Doctor Sleep I thought was a great and totally worthy successor to The Shining. His other films, Oculus and a few others, I wasn't the biggest fan of. I think they were good, but I don't think that they really blew me away. I think that he's become a mainstay in horror and that he's become very influential. And I think he definitely has the potential to become up there with the likes of John Carpenter. But right now, I don't think that he's really proven himself to the point that he's going to have staying power like the guys in Cinemaster and GOAT. And I'm going to put him in Student of the Game. And we're going to put him here. I'm going to put him behind Clint Eastwood, ahead of Jennifer Kent. Neil Marshall. He has brought us such films as The Descent, Dog Soldiers, Doomsday. I don't think that he is necessarily incredibly talented as a director. He's made some great films. The Descent is one of the all-time greats in the horror genre. But I think he's kind of untested. I think that he's got a lot of room to grow, and I would love to see him step out of this specific genre and do something a bit more risky that he's not comfortable with, just to kind of see where he ends up. I'm going to be honest, Dog Soldiers, I wasn't really big on it. I own it. You know, it's a werewolf classic, so I had to have it. But I didn't think it was as good as The Howling or An American Werewolf in London, not even by a long shot. And The Descent is really the only film of his that I can say hands down I really love. So he's going to go in hit or miss. I'm actually going to put him above George Romero. Neil Blomkamp. Neil Blomkamp is one of those directors with potential that I wish had gone on to do bigger, better things. I would have loved to have seen his Aliens movie that he wanted to do. District 9 is obviously a great film. Elysium, I really love Elysium. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I feel like back then the main reason people didn't like it was because they were hoping it was going to be some type of follow-up to District 9, and it wasn't, and they were disappointed, so they just kind of rage hated it. They didn't give it a chance. But I have liked Elysium since it came out. Chappie is where things kind of went downhill. I think the shorts that he did were really great, but overall, I feel like he's kind of had a lot of missed opportunities, and unfortunately, I think he's going to have to go into Student of the Game, because those two films that he did I think are really good, but he could have done much better if he had maintained that quality. So in Student of the Game, I'm going to put him ahead of Lee Wannell. Oliver Stone has brought us such films as Born on the 4th of July, Natural Born Killers, and of course Platoon. I think he's a good director, but I don't think that the consistency and quality is there, and I also don't think that he has like a lot of techniques that are necessarily influential. And yes, he has some movies that are like really, really good films, but overall, I think that his filmography is a hit or miss. I'm going to go ahead and put him behind Adrian Lyne here. Osgood Perkins. To be fair, I've only seen 3 films of his. I've seen Longlegs, The Monkey, and Keeper, which I did a review for Keeper. You can check it out on my channel here. Osgood Perkins has a very unique way of directing. It's very avant-garde, and it reminds me of like a cross between like David Lynch and almost like Ari Aster, if that makes sense, like with some of the weird stuff that he does with the camera. But yeah, I think Osgood Perkins has a lot of potential, but I don't think he's quite there yet. And Keeper was such a massive disappointment. I mean, I just wish that it had been better. I really wanted to like that movie. So for now, I'm going to put him in hit or miss. I'm going to put him right above Clive Barker here. All right. Now, earlier, I said that there were two directors on here that are kind of tied with being my favorite directors of all time. And now we are on the second one, Park Chan-wook, who did the Vengeance trilogy, which is Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, Old Boy, and Lady of Vengeance. He did Decision to Leave, The Handmaiden. I mean, this guy, he did Thirst. He's not made a bad movie. He literally is one of the greatest living directors of all time. I don't know how else I can really explain how much I really love Park Chan-wook's films. If you haven't seen them, you should definitely rent them, buy them, whatever you have to do. Go watch his films. They are wholly unique. They are some of the best narratives, best storytelling I've ever seen. His ability to capture sheer emotion in a frame is just unmatched. And I really do think that he is a better director than Bong Joon-ho, and he deserves vastly more credit. And just for me personally, and what I think he's been incredibly influential, by the way. I think that Old Boy especially has influenced so many movies since it came out. The tracking shot alone has been used in so many things, and I'm talking specifically the way that he did his tracking shot in Old Boy. It has been replicated, but never duplicated. And Park Chan-wook revolutionized action. He revolutionized South Korean cinema. Old Boy is what put South Korean cinema on the map. I don't think anybody would care who Bong Joon-ho is if it wasn't for Park Chan-wook and Old Boy. So with all that being said, Park Chan-wook is going to go up into GOAT status. And see, this is where it gets tough. Is he better than Denis Villeneuve? This is the age-old question because they're both tied in my eyes. I'm going to have to put him, you know what, we're just going to say that they're tied and they're right next to each other. I was going to put him below Denis Villeneuve, but I can't do that and be honest with myself. So we're just going to imagine that these two are in the same exact spot. So Park Chan-wook goes into GOAT status. Paul Thomas Anderson. There Will Be Blood, Magnolia. He just did One Battle After Another that just came out. Paul Thomas Anderson did as well. He did The Master. He's done a lot of great films. He's very unique in his approach to directing. I think that he is one of the most influential modern directors. Boogie Nights was, I believe, his first film. It might have been his second. I can't remember, but that was also a really great film that definitely had a huge impact on the medium. He's kind of the darling of indie films, or the indie field. And I don't think that you can really understate how much of an impact he has had on film in general. And I wouldn't feel comfortable unless I put him in Cinemaster. I'm probably going to... I'll put him below... Oh, man, that's tough. I'm going to put him below Ishiro Honda. I think Ishiro Honda is more influential. I think John Carpenter is more influential. Coen Brothers, David Lynch, they're all more influential. But Paul Thomas Anderson is up there. He definitely is. Paul Verhoeven is a very interesting director. And he's another one that I don't think gets enough credit for like the impact that he had. If you go back into the 80s, he seriously was one of the big innovators of bringing pop science fiction movies into a parameter that was like violent and for adults. So it's like his characters in his movies had aspects about them that were relatable or that were appealing to a wider audience. But with that in mind, his films also were very niche in the fact that they were brutal, they were gory. He did films like Total Recall, Starship Troopers, RoboCop. I mean, the guy made some of the all-time greats of that era of film, and I think that I think he's definitely highly influential, especially his approach to satire was very very well done, and yeah, so I'm gonna put him right below John McTiernan. Yeah, I think he's more influential than M Night Shyamalan and all these others. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I think he's more influential than them, but I still think that John McTiernan, what he did for the action genre, I still think is has a larger impact than what Paul Verhoeven did by popularizing and creating mass appeal for dark and violent science fiction. Paul W.S. Anderson, not to be confused with the other Paul Thomas Anderson. Oh, W.S. Anderson. This is a tough one, honestly, because I'm this close to putting him into Just Stop. Resident Evil movies are terrible. You know, an AVP is not a great film, but it's okay. But he did Event Horizon, which I adore. I believe he did Soldier with Kurt Russell, another great film that I actually really enjoy. But he's got some stinkers. That's where it gets tough, because he's got some films that are really freaking bad. I'm thinking about... Yeah, okay. I'm confident with this. I'm gonna put him above Clive Barker and below Osgood Perkins, just based on sheer quality of his filmography. Peter Jackson. You want to talk about somebody with range. Peter Jackson did Brain Dead or Dead Alive, whichever one you prefer for the name, and he did The Frighteners, and then Lord of the Rings, obviously, King Kong in 2005, The Hobbit. Peter Jackson, while he hasn't made a lot of films, the films that he has made are amazing and all-timers in their respective genres. And I would like to see Peter Jackson do something on the same level, like the same quality level as Lord of the Rings, but not a franchise film. His King Kong is a really good movie. It's the best adaptation of that story, period, in my opinion. But he just hasn't done enough. He's been stuck in all of this Hobbit nonsense, and now they're trying to get him to do more Lord of the Rings, and I just wish they would leave it alone. But Lord of the Rings as a trilogy is the greatest trilogy of all time, and it's some of the most beautifully shot and directed films ever made. So it's difficult not to put him super high up here. Just based on his range, based on the influence that Lord of the Rings had on the film industry and for popularizing fantasy, I'm going to put him in GOAT. Peter Jackson is going to be at the bottom of GOAT, and I'm confident with that. Philippou Brothers. Philippou Brothers have only done 2 movies. They did Talk to Me and Bring Her Back, but this is where it gets interesting. Talk to Me was outstanding. I was really blown away by it. I thought it was an unbelievable debut. You know, I still think it's one of the most original concepts that we've had in recent horror movies. Bring Her Back, though, in my opinion, is a masterpiece. So far, it's my favorite film of the year. I think that Bring Her Back is just outstanding. Such a good movie. Probably the best horror movie since Hereditary. But they've only had 2 films. But if we're looking at filmography, and if we're looking at their filmography as a whole, and what I think their impact is going to be in the future, and just kind of being speculative here, I'm going to put them below M. Night Shyamalan and above Luc Besson in Student of the Game. If they come out with a third film that's of the same quality as Bring Her Back and Talk to Me, they're going in Cinemaster. I don't care. They are so talented. But yeah, I'm confident with that for now. Quentin Tarantino. Oh, this is going to give me a lot of heat. Quentin Tarantino, he's made some all-time classics. He's made some really great films, and it cannot be denied how much people have been inspired by him and his filmmaking. The issue that I have with Quentin Tarantino is that he hasn't made a good film since Django, in my personal opinion. I thought that The Hateful Eight was pretty terrible, and I thought that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was pretty boring. I didn't really like either of those movies. And the other thing that really puts me back about him is Quentin Tarantino is a serial plagiarist when it comes to his angles, his shots, his cinematography, his camera techniques. There are videos online you can look up of him where he completely copied and pasted basically like images from other classic films. So I don't think that his influence, I don't think it should be called his influence. I think it should be called the people that inspired Tarantino's influence. People like Sergio Leone and others. So yeah, I don't feel confident putting him in GOAT. I really don't. I don't think he's a GOAT. I don't think he's that good. I think that he has stood on the shoulders of giants and taken from them. And yes, I cannot deny that he's a great writer. He writes some of the best dialogue ever, but this is not a writing list. If it was a writing list, he would be up way higher. But as a director list, I'm going to put him at the very top of Student of the Game. I know that I'm going to get hate comments about that, but look up the videos. Trust me, look up the videos. Tarantino has copied and copied and copied and copied his entire career, and he's done very little originally with the camera, and that's just a fact. So, yeah, I'm going to put him at top Student of the Game. I think he's been more influential to film overall than John McTiernan, but I don't think that he deserves Cinemaster or GOAT status. There's a certain level that you have to reach when you can just decide that you want to go and ruin all of your own franchises that you started. And Ridley Scott's at that level. Ridley Scott is the guy that, like, nobody's going to say no to Ridley. You're not going to tell him, hey, no, don't go make another Alien movie, or hey, don't make a sequel to Gladiator, which never needed a sequel. Nobody's going to tell him with his original films, like non-franchise films, nobody's going to say, hey, Ridley, don't you think that Joaquin Phoenix should have a European accent just like everybody else in the film? Nobody questions Ridley Scott because Ridley Scott has achieved that level of greatness. Ridley Scott's films like Alien, the original, like Blade Runner, Legend, I mean, Gladiator, the list goes on and on. He's had stinkers, don't get me wrong. He's had some films that weren't the best, but when Ridley Scott makes a movie and he's really passionate about the project, it's kind of incomparable. There are not many that could really even come close to Ridley Scott's ability as a director. And as far as his influence, Alien has been, I mean, astronomically influential to all of horror and all of science fiction. And Blade Runner is astronomically influential, visually specifically, to a lot of films today and of recent memory. And Ridley Scott, yeah, he's on a roll right now, destroying his own franchises, but he's still the GOAT, man. He's still the GOAT, and I'm going to put him above Scorsese. Hate me all you want. Ridley Scott is a genius, and he's one of the best directors of all time. Rob Zombie. So, as you all know, he did the Devil's Rejects, House of a Thousand Corpses, The Munsters, which was... he did the Halloween movies, the remakes. He's got a certain brand that some people love, the white trash brand, deplorable character brand. Rob Zombie doesn't bring anything unique to the table, in my opinion. He's just taking things that Wes Craven did back in the 70s, and he's kind of expanding upon it. I don't think that he has any true originality in anything he does, and he directs more like a child that is given a ton of money and just wants to make something, and they don't care if people like it. I think he also has a problem with like not knowing when to stop. I think his dialogue's terrible in his films. His characters are terrible. Yeah, Rob Zombie's going to go in Just Stop, but I would rather see his Halloween remake than any J.J. Abrams film, so he's going to go at the top of Just Stop. Robert Eggers. Man, Robert friggin' Eggers. Robert Eggers did The Witch, The Lighthouse, The Northman, Nosferatu, banger after banger after banger after banger. This guy is making a werewolf film now. I am so excited for it. Now, if we're talking specifically with direction, this is the peak of heightened horror or high art horror. This is like Robert Eggers is the one that you look to when you want to see how you can convey scale and meaning in your frames. The symmetry of how his shots are is just impeccable. His technique is borderline perfect. I mean, I can't really think of anything wrong that Robert Eggers does with his actual direction. And now when it comes to his characters and his acting and all of that, he has a addiction of sorts to where he wants it to be as period accurate as possible. Take note, Ridley Scott. He wants it to be as period accurate as possible. That comes down to the language, to the euphemisms, to the accents. He wants it to look accurate. I mean, he literally transports you to the times that these movies are based in. And I think that Robert Eggers is going to go down as one of the greatest directors of all time, especially with the role that he's on and as he continues to improve and make more films. And with all that in mind, I'm going to put Robert Eggers in GOAT. I think that he is one of the best living directors today, and I think that time is going to be very kind to Robert Eggers. And it's going to create a whole new generation of people that are interested in directing horror that are going to go more into the avant-garde artistic style of horror direction. Next up, we have Robert Rodriguez, who has done films like Desperado, Once Upon a Time in Mexico, Spy Kids, did From Dusk Till Dawn. He did a few episodes of The Mandalorian, and he did things like Machete, all of which are okay. He did a couple films that I really like, but overall, I don't think that he is really a director for me. I feel like he has a unique style, but it's nothing that I really see people inspired by or that's replicated. And I think that his consistency is truly hit or miss. So he did Sin City. Sin City is a great film. I'm still going to put him in hit or miss, though. Yeah, I'm going to put him above. Yeah, we'll put him right here below George Romero. Robert Zemeckis is one of the most unique directors on here. He has made some of the biggest crowd pleasers of all time. And he went into a venture of a lot of animated films for a while, like Beowulf and The Polar Express. But he's also made movies like Forrest Gump, and he's delved into thriller/horror with What Lies Beneath. He's done survival dramas with Castaway. This guy has done Back to the Future. The Back to the Future. He did Flight with Denzel Washington. He did a sci-fi movie, Contact. I mean, there's no shortage of range with Robert Zemeckis as a director, and I feel like the films that he has that really had an impact have immense staying power. And as far as just influence alone with films like Forrest Gump and things like that, I definitely think that he is at the top of student of the game. Oh boy, Roland Emmerich, the disaster movie guy. Roland Emmerich has done films like Independence Day, The Patriot, Day After Tomorrow, 98 Godzilla, 2012, 10,000 BC. Now that I'm saying all these movies out loud, Independence Day and a couple others, they have redeeming qualities. Some of them are kind of fun to watch, but I could live without pretty much anything else that he's done. I'm going to put Roland Emmerich down here below Bryan Singer in hit or miss. Next up, we have Ryan Coogler. I'm very interested to see what Ryan Coogler does in the future. how he progresses in his career. So far, he's done films like Black Panther, Creed, and most recently Sinners. I think Sinners is the best thing he's ever done so far. I thought it was a really great film. I am very interested to see what he does next, and if he's going to go back into franchises or if he's going to do something more original like Sinners. I think he's a very talented director. I think that his companionship with Michael B. Jordan and those two, I think that he can. There's just something about their relationship. He can really get the best performances out of Michael B. Jordan. But yeah, so I'm gonna. You know what? I don't think he's made a bad film. So Ryan Coogler is gonna go up into student of the game. I'm gonna put him. I'm gonna put him below Ari Aster. Next up, we have Sam Mendes, who has done films such as American Beauty, Road to Perdition, which I really love. If you haven't seen it, definitely go check that out. He also did 1917, Skyfall, lots of great films. He definitely has a recognizable style of directing, but I don't think that his volume has been that high. I don't think he's made as many films as he could have, but the quality is very consistent, and I think that he is pretty damn talented. So he's going to go into student of the game. Now, when we're talking about influence, I got to keep that in mind. I'm going to put Sam Mendes below Clint Eastwood here. Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi is a really fun director. He did Darkman. He did the Spider-Man trilogy, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness. He's got some bangers in his list. He did the Doctor Strange Into the Multiverse of Madness. He's branched out and done a lot of different stuff. Drag Me to Hell was a lot of fun too. Sam Raimi I feel like he made successful low-budget horror films possible with the success of Evil Dead. It's first of its kind, and now it's regarded as an all-time classic in the genre. I do think that Sam Raimi is very talented. He had some very innovative camera techniques, like the seeing the POV thing and the POV camera, like chasing people. That was a big Sam Raimi-ism back in the day, and a lot of directors have copied that, so he's incredibly influential. Is he more influential than Tarantino, than Zemeckis? I would say yes. I'm just thinking, just being real here. If we're thinking about how they've impacted future directors and film as of today, I think Sam Raimi's more influential. And I think Sam Raimi is more influential than James Wan. So I'm going to put him right here. And hate me all you want, but that's where I personally would put him. I think he's had a huge impact on film. And Scott Derrickson, famous for films like Sinister and most recently Black Phone 1 and 2. I think Derrickson's got a lot of potential. I think that he hasn't really tested the waters enough. He did The Exorcism of Emily Rose. I don't think that he's done anything markedly revolutionary or anything that's like going to truly impact future generations of filmmakers. It'll be interesting to see, though, with Black Phone 2 and the use of the vintage filter on the camera to differentiate between the dream world and the real world. That's an interesting technique. And it's just kind of like speculative at that point. I don't think as of right now he's really influenced that much. So I'm going to put him in student of the game, and we'll put him right below Ryan Coogler. Sergio Leone. Sergio Leone did the Man with No Name trilogy, which is Fistful of Dollars, For a Few Dollars More, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. He also did Once Upon a Time in the West, all-time great. This guy is one of the ones that Tarantino definitely was inspired by and copied. Nobody's ever done a film quite like Sergio Leone. Nobody's ever had a score quite like his films. Nobody's ever really, I guess, had such a unique flair when it came to showing the intensity of a face-off between characters. Sergio Leone is a pioneer in many ways, and his films have been constantly copied, constantly people have tried to imitate it, but he has never been duplicated. I don't think anybody ever will. He's honestly up there with Kurosawa as far as influence on the medium. And with all that in mind, I think I'm going to have to put him up here in front of James Cameron. So, right behind Akira Kurosawa, we have Sergio Leone as one of the GOATs. Man, we are just getting heavy hitters non-stop here. We are now on Stanley Kubrick, one of the all-timers. 2001 Space Odyssey, Clockwork Orange, Eyes Wide Shut. This guy changed everything. I don't think that Star Wars would be what it was if it wasn't for Stanley Kubrick. I don't think that any horror would be what it was if it wasn't for The Shining. Stanley Kubrick is undeniably a GOAT and one of the most influential filmmakers of all time. You know what? I think he's the most influential filmmaker of all time. We still got a few more people on this list, but looking at it now, I don't know if anybody can beat Stanley Kubrick. I really don't. So that's where he's going to go for now. Stephen Sommers is a guy that makes films that are crowd pleasers. They're fun to watch. And I feel like he is overly hated for absolutely no reason. He just makes fun movies, man. You know, they might not be super intellectually stimulating, but they're well made. They're well shot. I really like The Mummy. I really like the Van Helsing that he did. I know people hate on that movie now, apparently, but I think it's a good time. He's done a lot of fun movies. I've never had an issue with Stephen Sommers, but he's also done some pretty bad movies, so he's going to go and hit or miss here, and I'm going to put him below Romero and above Rodriguez. All right, guys, this is the big test here. When we think of movie director, the name that pops into our head like that is always going to be Spielberg. Spielberg invented the modern day blockbuster. He changed probably more than anybody, besides maybe Kubrick. But Spielberg is responsible for Jurassic Park, for Jaws, like so many. I mean, Indiana Jones, like, God, the list can go on and on. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, E.T. I don't know what can be said that hasn't already been said about Steven Spielberg. I really don't. But the question is, would Steven Spielberg be Steven Spielberg if it wasn't for Kubrick? If we're looking at influence here, if we're looking at the ripple effect that Kubrick had on filmmakers at the time. If we're talking legacy, and we're talking like staying power, 100 years from now, 200 years from now, who are people going to think of? What movies are people more likely going to watch, more likely going to appreciate? Who truly tapped into the collective consciousness of people, of humans in the film medium? Who just somehow channeled what we needed to be entertained and just knew how to entertain us? It's got to be Spielberg. It has to be. I think that Spielberg and Kubrick they're neck and neck. And I could flip on this at any point because I literally just flipped on it thinking about this. I'm going to put Spielberg at the top now, greatest director of all time. But Kubrick and him, interchangeable. Interchangeable for sure. All right, Stuart Gordon, the king of schlock. Reanimator, From Beyond, so many of those great Lovecraftian adaptations. This guy's a ton of fun. You know, his movies are super niche. You probably haven't seen them if you're not into that kind of thing, like the B-movie horror stuff. That's actually pretty good quality. Heavy reliance on practical effects, which I really love. I don't think he's really been super influential. So, Stuart Gordon, some of his movies I'm not too big on. He's probably gonna be hit or miss. I'll put him below Romero because I do think Romero's got more staying power. All right, next up is Takashi Miike. I believe that's how it's pronounced. I could never figure out how to pronounce his last name. Ichi the Killer, One Missed Call, 13 Assassins, This guy has a penchant for doing really screwed up movies, but screwed up movies that are actually really good. I think that he's a very talented filmmaker. He's very good at portraying unbelievable and exaggerated things, but making it somehow believable and not seem exaggerated, if that makes sense. Like, he can show you anime level blood in a fight scene, but it doesn't take you out of the film. Like, it's very interesting what he's able to do. Oh yeah, he did Audition as well. Another really famous J horror film. I think he's been super influential, honestly, on a lot of directors. I think he's been more influential than Tarantino as a director, not as a writer, as a director. I feel like Zemeckis might be. I think he's going to edge out on Takashi here, but I think Takashi's good right here. Okay, I'm going to put him behind McTiernan. Well, I'm happy with that. I think him behind McTiernan is more amicable. I'm trying to put like personal bias aside. Yeah, I think that's a good spot for Takashi Miike. And Terry Gilliam, Time Bandits, Brazil, 12 Monkeys. I love that movie. He's done a lot of bangers, a lot of classics. It may not be your cup of tea. A lot of his stuff is very surrealist, very weird, dreamy, etc. It's kind of like, in some ways, at times, he feels like the British sci-fi version of David Lynch. But yeah, Terry Gilliam is whimsical. I feel like people like Wes Anderson are heavily inspired by him. And I don't have Wes Anderson on here, by the way. I've only seen like a couple of Wes Anderson's films, just not my cup of tea. But I feel like he was definitely inspired by Terry Gilliam. And I think that Terry Gilliam's incredibly influential too. I'm going to put him below John McTiernan because I do think that John McTiernan did more for the medium. Next up is Tim Burton. Tim Burton is such an interesting paradox and anomaly in this list because Tim Burton has such a unique style that when you see a shot of his film or you see a character, you instantly know that that's a Tim Burton film. And I feel like directors even like Robert Eggers have been inspired by Tim Burton's filmmaking. Burton's films like Edward Scissorhands and Sleepy Hollow and Sweeney Todd, the original Batman and Batman Returns, super influential, super impactful, super big films. I think that I don't think that he gets enough discussion when it comes to talking about his overall impact on cinema, period. He made Gothic cool. Like, just let that sink in. Tim Burton made the Gothic aesthetic mainstream. Like, that's such a crazy achievement. Just based on his unique qualities, based on what he's able to accomplish, based on his skills as a director, his storytelling, his ability to blend fantastical, and his range too. You know, people think Tim Burton and they get a certain image in their mind, but he actually does have range, and Big Fish is the perfect example of that. So for influence, I think that he's fine here, right behind Ishiro Honda and Cinemaster. I think that Tim Burton, while his films aren't consistently great, I think that his impact is undeniable. Tobe Hooper, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Poltergeist, and Salem's Lot. This guy knew how to direct horror. One of the best at the medium. Very underrated director. He also did other types of films too. I don't think he gets enough love. I think he was a innovative and genius filmmaker. And yeah, with all of that in mind, I mean, it's undeniable, like his influence on future generations as well. What Texas Chainsaw Massacre did, it opened the doors for Halloween. It opened the doors for all slashers, period. And it was filmed and made on a micro budget. Yeah, man. Tobe Hooper, he's gonna have to go up into Cinemaster. You know what? I'm confident putting him right behind David Fincher. I think that's a good spot for him. Okay, next we got Tony Scott. This is Ridley Scott's brother. He unfortunately unalived himself few years ago. Tony Scott directed films like Top Gun, Days of Thunder, Man on Fire, Deja Vu, Domino, True Romance. I gotta be real with you. I absolutely hate his direction. I really don't like his direction. I feel like he made good movies, and I really did enjoy the movies. But especially towards the end of his career, with all the shaky cam and all the cuts and the shitty editing, I hated watching that. Like Man on Fire, I think is a good movie, but it's ruined by the direction. So I'm gonna have to put Tony Scott in hit or miss. Put him right below Bryan Singer. Oh, U-Bowl. Oh my god. Oh. I should have just named the category Just Stop. I should have named it U-Bowl instead of Just Stop because this category defines him. He's going to go up to the very top of that category. This is a person who, for whatever reason, continues to make movies and continues to get funded, even though he's been making movies for decades and has never made a single good film. He is terrible, and I wish that he would just stop. Like he is the epitome definition of that. He is synonymous with this category. He is potentially the worst filmmaker of all time, and I really hope that one day he just stops. And by the way, did House of the Dead, In the Name of the King. I mean, pretty much any like bad film, like truly bad film that got big release or a wide release in the 2000s, it was probably him. Like he is a terrible filmmaker through and through, and yeah, this is where he belongs. Okay, next up we have the Wachowskis. The Wachowskis did the Matrix trilogy. First Matrix revolutionized film in general. VFX, action, sci-fi, all of it. The Wachowskis did Jupiter Ascending, which wasn't very good. They did Cloud Atlas, which was okay. Man. The Matrix is super influential. Just because of that, I think they belong as student of the game. But looking at like their entire filmography, it's not very good. But just based on the influence of the Matrix itself, I have no problem putting the Wachowskis right here in student of the game behind David Cronenberg. All right, now we got Wes Craven, the legend himself. Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, The Hills Have Eyes, so many other amazing movies. This guy was an all-time legend. R.I.P. Now, Wes Craven, while he made some of the best horror movies of all time and really popularized the genre of horror in mainstream audiences, I do think that his quality was sporadic at best. I think that he made just as many awful films as he did good films, but his influence is undeniable. Wes Craven is a legend for a reason. I have no problem saying he's more influential than Paul Thomas Anderson. I really don't. So, yeah, I think that's a good spot, and I'm glad that him and John Carpenter are here together. That makes me happy. Next up, we got William Friedkin, who did The Exorcist. He did The French Connection. He did Sorcerer, Cruising, Bug, Killer Joe was his last film. William Friedkin was the ultimate purveyor of showing us the grittiest, darkest, most disgusting aspects of humanity. I think that he was one of the most talented directors of his time, and his films and the gritty nature, the almost noir nature of his movies have definitely inspired. The Exorcist is hands down probably the most influential horror movie ever made. That depends if you consider Psycho horror. If you do, then obviously Psycho would probably take that mantle. But as it stands, I think The Exorcist is the reason that spooky movies and movies about hauntings and ghosts, etc., possession, none of that would be around if it wasn't for The Exorcist. The Exorcist was a worldwide phenomenon. It changed things forever. It pushed boundaries. Yeah, William Friedkin is an all-time legend. I definitely think that whether they recognize it or not, a lot of major directors now are directly inspired by William Friedkin and by his filmography itself. So I'm going to put William Friedkin up here in the GOAT status. And I'm going to put him right below Coppola and right above Peter Jackson, because I don't think he gets enough credit. He is definitely much more influential than people like to talk about. Wolfgang Petersen, who did movies like Troy and The Never-Ending Story and Das Boot and Enemy Mine. Yeah, you know, he was a good director, R.I.P. I don't think he really broke any new ground or did anything that was revolutionary, so to speak. But I don't think he really ever made a bad film. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to put him... You know what? I'm going to put him right below Clint Eastwood. I feel like that is an acceptable position for Wolfgang Petersen. Because he was a storied director, amazing filmography, made some really, truly memorable films. And while he may not have been super innovative, I definitely think that his films have influenced generations upon generations. Much like the Philippou brothers, Zach Cregger has only done 2 films that I'm aware of. He did Barbarian, which I was kind of, I liked it, but it wasn't that great. And then he did Weapons, which I thought was really, really good. Weapons was very unique, very original. I was pleasantly surprised by that. So with that in mind, I'm going to have to put him in Student of the Game for now. I think if he does more movies that are of the same quality and tier as Weapons, he could easily go up to Cinemaster. But as of right now, I think he is comfortable in Student of the Game. And I'm going to put him right here. I'll put him behind Scott Derrickson. Looks like a good position. Oh, Zack Snyder. The thing is, as much as people hate Zack Snyder, and you can hate him as much as you want, that's your opinion, but you cannot deny that you can see a Zack Snyder moment in a film and you instantly recognize, oh yeah, that's Zack Snyder. The techniques he uses with the slow motion and then speeding it up, etc. His action is unique. He definitely has his own voice as a director, and countless films have been inspired by what he did with 300, Watchmen, etc. So, and Dawn of the Dead is one of the greatest zombie movies ever made, the remake from 2004 that he did with James Gunn. So, say what you want about the guy. Say what you want about his dark and gloomy DCU. I don't care. This guy has had a lot of influence, even in the short time that he's been directing. And I think that with all of that in mind, he definitely deserves to go up into the very top of Student of the Game. And we're going to put him right here behind John McTiernan. Brian De Palma has done movies like Scarface and Carrie and many others throughout the years. He's got a very unique style. It's almost glamorous. With that in mind, he hasn't really maintained that consistency that he had early on in his career. But there's no denial that he's been influential. He definitely has a very unique vision with his movies and inspired the likes of people, Nicholas Winding Refn, for example. Nicholas Winding Refn is kind of an amalgamation of so many directors. But yeah. With all that said, I think Brian De Palma, I think he's been pretty influential. It's just the consistency that bothers me. But I'm going to put him right here above Takashi Miike. I think that his movies have been influential, but I don't think they've been as influential or had as much staying power as films from the directors above him there. And I've mentioned him a couple times, Nicholas Winding Refn, who did Valhalla Rising, Bronson, Drive, The Neon Demon, Only God Forgives. I actually like that movie. A lot of people hate it. I actually thought it was pretty interesting. Nicholas Winding Refn unfortunately suffers from the Tarantino way that he copies a lot from people like David Lynch and Brian De Palma. But I think that Nicholas Winding Refn is very talented when it comes to his actual direction. I just wish that he would do more. I wish that he would kind of expand a little bit and go outside of what his comfort zone is. I think he could be. I think that Nicholas Winding Refn doing like a Bond movie or something would be so cool. I think it would end up looking really neat as long as he had people there to tell him, don't do this weird crap here or this weird crap there, and they kept him on track. I think it would be amazing to see, and he's got the eye for it. He can make something look really majestic and beautiful. So yeah, Nicholas Winding Refn, I'm gonna put him in student of the game. I think that I think he's a good director. I don't necessarily know what kind of influence he's going to have in the future. Let's put him. You know what? I'm going to put him above James Gunn here. Yeah, Antoine Fuqua, the longtime collaborator with Denzel Washington. Antoine Fuqua has done Training Day. He's done Southpaw. He did the Equalizer films. The guy's done a ton of movies. King Arthur. Like, he's got range too. He's done a lot of different stuff. He's really talented when it comes to directing action. I think that he's a very good filmmaker. I just haven't seen anything from him that has completely blown me away. It's all pretty much like popcorn flicks, movies that are easy to digest. But yeah, there's no doubt that he is a very prolific filmmaker, has had a studied career. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm always excited to see what he does next. So for Antoine Fuqua, I'm going to go ahead and put him up in student of the game here. I'm going to put him between Catherine Bigelow and Jennifer Kent. I definitely think that he's very talented. I just don't know about the staying power of his films. And last but not least, we have Fede Alvarez, who did movies like Don't Breathe, The Evil Dead remake, and Alien Romulus. All three of those films, I think, are great. I don't think he's made a bad film. And I think that he's only going to get better as time goes on. He's one of the most promising directors working today. I'm very excited. Anytime I hear that he's attached to a project, I get pumped. So Fede Alvarez has a very visceral approach, very in your face with the violence and the blood and the ugly side of what's happening on screen. And he's got a real talent for not looking away when things get bad. And I respect it. So Fede Alvarez is very promising. I think he's one of the best directors working today, but he's only had 3 films. So it's kind of difficult to say like what kind of staying power he's going to have in the long term. I think that Fede Alvarez, I have no issue putting him right here in front of Mike Flanagan. I think that's a good spot. All right, and I have some last minute additions that I added into here. Put these in here after I had finished recording the rest of the video, but I thought of a few directors that I felt really needed to be in this list. And the first one that we're going to go over is Darren Aronofsky. Darren Aronofsky is one of the more unique directors of the past 20 years or so, 20, 30 years. He did Requiem for a Dream, Black Swan, Noah. There's a very unique style to his films. The Fountain is a very surreal one as well. Really good. Darren Aronofsky is an extremely talented director, and I think that his influence is pretty big. But at the same time, I feel that he borrows a lot. Just like how Nolan borrowed from Satoshi Kon, so did Darren Aronofsky for Black Swan by copying a lot of the elements of the film Perfect Blue from Satoshi Kon. So for Darren Aronofsky, I think he's extremely unique in a lot of ways. I think he's more unique than Quentin Tarantino, but I don't think that his films have had as much of an impact as somebody like John McTiernan. So we are going to put him right here above Zack Snyder and below John McTiernan. And next up we have David Ayer. David Ayer is a director who does a lot of street level kind of crime picks. He did Harsh Times with Christian Bale, which is very underrated. This was one of his earliest films. He did End of Watch. And more recently, he did Suicide Squad in 2016, which was terrible. And infamously, it was not entirely his fault that it was so bad. There was a lot of studio interference and a lot of issues throughout that production. David Ayer is talented, for sure. But I don't think that he's breaking ground as some type of revolutionary director or anything even close, remotely close to that. So David Ayer is going to go into hit or miss. And I'm going to put him above Romero here. And David O. Russell. David O. Russell did American Hustle, Silver Linings Playbook, The Fighter, consistently very good films. He had quite a run there for a while. I haven't seen that much of him as of late, but I do think that he is one of the more talented, visually speaking, directors on this list. His films aren't really innovative at all, They're kind of safe, but they tell very good stories. So I could argue that somebody like Zemeckis definitely uses some innovative technology, especially when he went into the animation era. But David O. Russell is very deep rooted in real life style drama, and he hasn't really gone that far out of there, out of that specific area. So for David O. Russell, I am thinking David O. Russell would probably be below M. Night Shyamalan and above the Philippou brothers here. And we have Na Hung Jin, a South Korean director responsible for The Wailing and Chaser. I didn't know this until doing research for this video, but he apparently wrote the story for the film The Medium. I was wondering because when I saw The Medium, I was like, this is just a blatant copy ripoff of The Wailing, but it turns out that it was actually written by him, by the director. So The Wailing, I think, is potentially the best South Korean horror film ever. I think that Chaser is just, not really S tier, but A tier crime drama out of South Korea. It's kind of hard to compete with some of the others that they have released out of that country. Their films are consistently good, so saying that a film is good out of South Korea is kind of, it's expected. But I don't think the Chaser is leagues above a lot of the other films in the same genre, but I do think that The Wailing is an immense and powerful, traumatic film. So I don't think he's had a ton of influence, but I think he is a better director than Takashi Miike. I think he's a better director than Zack Snyder. I'm going to put him below Aronofsky here. I feel like if Na Hong Jin did some more films and they were of the same caliber as Chaser and The Wailing, he would definitely be approaching Cinemaster territory. And Brett Ratner, who directed films such as Red Dragon, Rush Hour 1 and 2. I can't remember if he did 3. And he also did X-Men The Last Stand. Brett Ratner's interesting because it's like he's got a lot of range. He does a lot of different genres. Very safe in his directorial style. But the films that he does, it's like I can't see any Brett Ratner film being above like an 8 out of 10. And that's being nice. And of course that would go to like the Rush Hour films. But yeah, I'm going to put him in hit or miss here. We're going to put Brett Ratner. I would say Brett Ratner is above Rodriguez. Next up, we have Duncan Jones, the son of David Bowie. He has done films like Moon and the Warcraft film and Source Code, really underrated sci-fi movie with Jake Gyllenhaal. Very good. He's got a very unique style, and he's another director that's kind of early on in their career, but I feel like for the most part, he has made excellent films. I think Warcraft kind of really slowed down his momentum for sure because the movie wasn't great. But looking at Source Code and looking at Moon specifically, I do think that there's a ton of talent there. So for him, I am going to be putting Duncan Jones. I'll put him in Student of the Game, and I will put him above Antoine Fuqua and below Jennifer Kent. All right, and last but not least, I'm hoping this is the last one. I have added directors throughout this list, but this is the last one I could really think of. I was debating on including animation here, but since I've referenced Robert Zemeckis' animated run, I felt like I was obligated to do this. Satoshi Kon is not on here because I've only seen one of his films. It's another venture that I have not begun yet. But Hayao Miyazaki, what is there that can be said that hasn't been said? He is the king of animation, in my opinion. He is about as close to the Walt Disney of our lifetime that we can get. His art style is instantly recognizable. His films as a whole have such engaging and beautiful stories. I don't think that any film that he's specifically directed has been even mediocre. They are almost consistently cream of the crop films. Hayao Miyazaki is responsible for my personal favorite animated film of all time, The Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, Castle in the Sky, Kiki's Delivery Service, The Wind Rises, My Neighbor Totoro, Porco Rosso. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And it's like, this guy is a complete and total legend. And the fact that he still does everything hand-drawn just blows my mind. So there was no doubt he was going to be in GOAT status. So we are going to put him in GOAT status. But the question is where? Now, looking at influence, I do think that he's been more influential than James Cameron. But I don't know about Sergio Leone. So we are going to put him right here in the top 5 GOATs. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. All right, everyone, that is the list. That is the final ranking that I have. There are quite a few directors on here. It ended up being over 100. I think I started with 97 and we ended around, I can actually tell you the exact number here. We ended around at 104. So there's 104 directors on here. This was a big project, took a lot of time. I hope that you enjoyed this. You may not agree with all of my takes, maybe none of my takes, but that's what film is for, is to be subjective and to appreciate art in our own ways. So what did I get wrong, in your opinion? Who did I miss? And what did you think of this overall list? Would you like to see a list of the top writers of all time, top cinematographers, top actors, actresses, whatever you can think of? Just let me know in the comments. I'm very interested to hear. I'm excited to see all your discussion. And thank you so much for watching. If you've made it through this video, please like and subscribe, share. It helps so much for engagement. But that's all. So have a good night, and I will be posting another video soon.